got a few minutes here. So we're at Wildernest. It's the third Wildernest. Jozef Frucek, fighting monkey.
You're the first one who said my name correctly.
Did I?
Yes.
Man, I've known you for a long time. We're like brothers now, you know?
Yes, it's true.
So this is a bit different. This is kind of like a roundtable vibe. Kind of like we got some great people here. We have Andrew Parr from Wilderness.
Yo, yo, yo.
We have Tristan de Montebello from Ultra Speaking.
Yo, yo.
And we have Tim So. So what do you guys want to talk about? Speak before you think, Tristan. Give me something here.
Actually, I have a question, and maybe I'll start with Tim.
Yeah.
Why were you interested in coming to this edition? Especially because you have known Jozef for so long.
Right. And like I've mentioned to you how much I don't like him.
Yeah, just a couple times.
Well, so to me, Wilderness has been, it's an environment to come to really look into ourselves, look into our bodies, look into our minds, be in this incredible place where we can just focus on that and not worry about anything else that's happening, you know? And to me, it's this environment and almost like culture. It's a culture that's created where we can really do that in a way where it feels safe, where it feels like we can just explore without any, hesitation, so with incredible people. It's a good group. It's a good number. It's like 20 of us or so. And I mean, what I feel now, it's like our third day here. It's like, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling this just like comfort with everyone here. And this kind of, I could talk to any one of these 20 people and go into a really deep conversation and ask them about their life and genuinely be interested. And vice versa, it just feels like it's a special place to be. So, and I think as what you're creating here is we have this ability to learn from some of the greatest teachers in the world. Jozef, who I believe is one of the greatest movement teachers, or teachers of not even just movement, really. It's just a teacher. He's a teacher. You're a wise human being that I don't know whatever you're going to teach. I don't know what the hell it's going to be. Like yesterday we played this it's like a game you could play with 3-year-old or like not 3, maybe like 7-year-olds, but it's still the same things we're learning and same dynamics and same dropping any preconceived notions and just coming with this beginner mind to learn something new about ourselves. Yeah. So that's where I think it's that's one way that I'm looking at this opportunity here. Yeah.
There's a few different concepts rolling around. One thing that really attracted me to the fighting monkey or the FM training was this learning of a language. And for me, this is one of the most interesting things is how do we communicate many different things all at once? How do I learn how to move my body? How can I understand you? How can you understand me? And I'm curious, I haven't experienced this in any other type of movement world because it's not practical outside of its context. And I'm curious to know, when did you discover that communication was maybe the most important thing for you? And also, was there a moment where you incorporated that into movement, or was that always a constant for you?
I really don't know, but I find the communication is being the umbrella for all other research that we have. I have spent 8 years of the research in university on voice and communication, right? And there where my passion lies. I feel like every day where I do not meet someone, I feel like I lost day. So I like to be around other people. Anything that I have created, anything that I am, what I consider myself, that fluctuating knowledge that I have, that fluctuating organism that I am, is because of the other people. So I'm very grateful for all the encounters that I had in my life and people that I met and they taught me, even if they did not know that they are my great teachers, right? It's not like everyone that I met was an amazing human being, but everyone gave me a wonderful lesson. And somehow the talent that I had from the very early childhood, that I remember that I was paying attention when other people talked. So I was like a big ear. I always wanted to hear. I always wanted to learn. I always ask my father to retell me the story 15 times. He said, "Can you please tell me that story again? Can you tell me that story again?" So storytelling and storytelling was always a very important part of my life. And I also believe that the way we are telling the stories represents or manifests the way we acquire knowledge, the way we understand the world, and the way we change the stories according to different questions that being posed on us, right? We think that when we learn something, it is something static, but it is not. Each time we retrieve something from our memory, it changes because it is retrieved in a different situation. It is retrieved through different questions. So if you ask me about my childhood and you ask me a certain question, I will recall that situation in a very different way than if it is placed in another context. So our knowledge, anything that we learned, is always changing. And if the environment is rich enough, we are always evolving. Our memories are evolving, our future, our present.
How do you make space for digestion of all of this?
You already know, but maybe it's interesting for the public. I don't work more than 6 months a year, and that was a principle I always used, even when I was a kid. Even when I was in a basic school, I was always checking how I could escape the exams. So when we had end year exams in math, I knew that the director of the school, he didn't like the teacher, so I know that they would not talk to each other. So I would go down to him and I said, "Mr. Director, do you have any job that I could do around the school?" And he says, "Oh, don't you have a class?" I said, No, I don't have any class." "Well, cut the grass." So I went outside, I cut the grass while I was watching the other kids and doing the math exams. And so I was very talented in exploit other relations and make that in my benefit. So all the development was made that I kind of escaped classes, and even when I was doing sports, I was never training very hard. But I think that sleeping, we always think like when we need to learn something new, or when we are learning that we have to learn all the time, that sleeping period, when we give ourselves rest, that's where we are truly learning something. This resting period is extremely important for our brain and for our bodies. You probably experienced it many times. You try something, then you let it rest, and suddenly you come back and it's all there. But we are so proactive. We always want to read more books and we want to know all, and we do not know, so we have to learn some other things. We know already everything. We are just not looking at what we already have. We are always searching more, and so we become more and more empty.
So I'm curious about the way you teach and how you have this. You're like, as you can tell here, like we like to laugh, and actually that's one of the things as well. And maybe I missed it here. Is it's like how much we have fun here, but how much we're practicing and we're going into spaces where like we are becoming quite serious and we're taking our training seriously, And the way you teach is like you demand that. You really demand this like attention to when you speak. And I think that's a sign of an amazing teacher, and it takes a lot for, I think, a teacher to be able to demand that and hold that kind of space. But it's something that I don't see a lot in like the Western world, is this kind of like, oh, don't be too aggressive or don't be too pushy, or, it's like, but you're just like, I don't give a fuck, and we all appreciate that, it's very evident, because it's so obvious that it's not this like egotistical aggression. It's like, actually, like, I'm here to teach you, you know, like, just, and I know what to teach you, you know. And so it's kind of this like really clear teacher-student relationship. So
But I also give you responsibility, and so we can share the space.
Yeah.
So I outsource the responsibility also to you. I told you already that in the class, I do not want that I pull the whole class alone, that I'm the horse and then you're just going to follow me. And I also refuse to be that central authority around which everything will evolve. I don't want to take that responsibility, not in a sense that I like to take responsibility for leading a class, but not necessarily teaching. We need to share that responsibility of learning. You need to feel that you need to do also a job. So my role is to provoke in you that deep engagement with the learning material. So when you are learning something new, you're understanding how you are how you relate that new material to your prior knowledge, and if it can be used in your context, or in which way in which way this material is challenging you, etc. So, and also I really do not want people to do what I do. So we are sharing together certain ideas, certain qualities, and we see how you respond to them. And so we can be evolving, and not everyone is becoming like me. I don't want to teach you something and tell you this is the best because I'm doing it. Of course, I'm better at something than you, but I very, very clearly understand if I step into your world, no matter how great master I am, I will be not such a great master. And so I'm very conscious about it. So I'm sharing with you the principles, the research principles, the way of observation, the way I am decoding the world, and how I'm using that material to use it in variations and variabilities and demanding situations. And you see how you're responding. And through the dialogue, we are co-creating that workshop together. I'm not coming and telling you exactly what to do. And look, this is the manual, and then you have point 1, point B, point C. This is very linear way of thinking and linear way of teaching, which is very effective, but I'm not very interested in effective learning. I'm very much interested in ineffective learning, something that seems to be very ineffective, but at the end might create a lot of effectivity when it comes to a non-linear environment or unexpected risk, uncertainty. And uncertainty and risk is the absolutely underlying fabric of our everyday world. But when we are teaching other people, it seems like we know how the world would be, and so everything becomes very static.
One thing you spoke about yesterday were these 4 principles of uncertainty, and the 4 ways that people are perceiving, whether it's working with someone or assessing risk, how much will this risk pay off? Can you go into some depth around that?
Well, I will oversimplify it. I don't want to be smart here, but usually people, when they do samples with you, so I said we need to study why people would even reach to you, why people would be seeking your presence, right? So it is what initiated that search and that idea that they could spend time with you and maybe share time space with you and knowledge or explore something together. That's the first thing that we should be studying together. The second thing is, how do people sample if you're saying what you're saying, if it's true? I'm a source of information for you, but you need to be checking if what I'm saying is right or relevant. And I need to be able to create a space within which you can check my references. So I don't blur things, so I don't let you flow in some unknown space where you do not know where the informations are coming from. And in every microcycle, in every training, we are exposing something about each other. I am giving you opportunity to learn something, and I am also giving you opportunity to know me a little bit better. And then third thing that we are studying is when the sampling will stop. So when there's a termination where you suddenly feel like, I know I don't have to study that anymore, or you decided not to study with that person because you don't like that person, etc. So there's this very interesting dynamic. And then what you were mentioning is that what's going on in the people's mind is that what I'm saying, will it materialize itself? Like I say, you will have this great health benefit doing these things that I'm doing in the morning. And you will say, will it really materialize? And if it materializes, how big it is? And in my values, is it really worth So if you see me and you see that I spend it on some certain practices over 25 years, and you say, well, how it's possible that he went through such a long journey? Because I didn't have any expectations. I didn't want to achieve a goal. For me was I loved it so much. I didn't do those practices, those kind of healing practices to become more healthy. I was simply interested in observing those practices and what effect they will have on me. And to be honest, I really even cannot tell because I don't remember how I felt when I was 20 years old. People used to say, I move better now when I'm older, I feel less pain. But you do not really remember how you were recovering when you were 25. So it's very, always very subjective. And it's beautiful that it is subjective, of course.
What comes from me there is this approach to learning that is a lot more open-minded. For example, even saying, hey, how do we speak to what might get someone to come to Fighting Monkey or come to Wilderness or come to Ultra Speaking or come see you in an IFS session or come see me in a coaching session? Most people are very goal-oriented, or they may know what they want. Do you feel like you get people that are very specific, meaning, hey, I want to be a better boxer or a better grappler or a dancer, or they have very clear goals? Or do you feel like the people that come to see you are a little more open in terms of like long-term learning and or quality of life?
Well, you already know that our material is so blurred, no one really understands what we are doing. It's like, it's so crazy. I try to always re-articulate how I can make people to understand what we are doing. So I gave up. So I don't care. If you understand, you do, and if you don't, it's also fine with me. That does not mean that I'm ignorant. I will always be with humility. I will try to explain to you what I like to work on. But there is a great filter when you are not defining the material, you are not targeting it because you want to be successful in the marketing. And that's a great filter because you're getting people from different fields, and as you mentioned, you get people that are very interested. So I don't have to come to a class and try to convince anyone. These are people that are they are enjoying uncertainty, they are enjoying failure, and they are comfortable with it. They don't necessarily looking for an end goal because they understood there is nothing to be achieving. There's nothing like an end goal in it. Of course, it doesn't mean that we are all over the place. There is a certain direction, but it's more in these fundamental invisible principles, as observation, listening, communication, etc., that would be leading all that research forward and give it in kind of direction.
Yeah, I mean, so something you mention a lot is observation, and this is like when I first learned from you, like it was like 2013. It was like years ago at Ito's movement camp. I remember like when I would first leave whenever I would leave your class, I would always be like, Jesus Christ, like this guy's just like, he's just so observant on the smallest, like most minuscule thing. And it blew my mind, really, because it was like I was not observing things, even though maybe I thought I was or whatever. Like thought I was observing my body, but it's like an awareness or a skill that you've clearly developed over many years, yeah. But and it sounds like it's a guiding principle for you, is this observation. So what does that? I guess like I don't even know really what my question is here, but it's like I just like saying words, and I want you to like
jump into it.
Yeah.
Well, there was a certain practice that we have developed over 15 years, but we understood that this can become a great habit. We always said the great systems create great efficiencies, no matter how great and rich that system is from inside. You might eventually looping yourself inside of it, and it will create a great deficiencies, physically, also mentally. So there is a necessity to keep the principle like 60-40 or 70-30. 70-30 principle is like 70% of your weight on one leg and 30% of your weight on another, or 60% of the weight on one leg and 40 on the other. And that 60 or 70 is representation of your stability, where you are, who you are. And this 30% or 40% is your discovery in other fields. So what we've done with my partner, with Linda, is that we, as soon as we realize we becoming monotone, monotony is of course the worst enemy for the joints and for your mind. So in that monotony, if suddenly we realize there is a certain habit, we try to see if we could attend to that habit not so mechanically but more creatively. That was the first thing. That's one direction. So when you get bored of something, it doesn't mean that you leave it, but you search more and you go more in depth and you start to observe more fine details. And then this 30 or 40%, this lighter leg, is the leg that is visiting other houses and visiting other teachers. And so as we are speaking here, I'm also student of many other teachers. But I'm not going to learn what they are teaching. So when I would be working with a high class freestyle wrestling coach, I am not going to learn to become a world champion in wrestling, but I'm asking them the principles. I'm asking them how they came up to such a high level of understanding human emotion and observation, and they were able to lead their athletes to such a high level of performance. This was also the research I've done with my tutor, with Lyudmila Machachova, which was my tutor on voice and communication in university, with whom I spent over 8 years, and it's still my main teacher. We were more analyzing how we are looking at the things. So I'm looking, but I see, and I hear, but I also listen. And that is like, yes, that is an underlying principle for our work.
When it wasn't maybe the first time I met you, but you told me a story of why you do what you do, and maybe you can share that, and then I'll have another question. Just the endless summer, and
Endless summer.
Yeah, the endless summer. Maybe I'll share the story,
Uh-huh.
but my recollection of the story, I was like, well, why do you practice the way you practice? And you mentioned to me that it's because when you're a child or growing up, there's summertime feels like forever, and it's so rich, and you're playing with your friends all day, and it never ends. And I see that very much in the way you are in the world. You're endlessly curious, and sort of, I feel like it has that 60-40 or 70-30 principle where you're very rooted in what you do, but you're also interested in many other things. What that has transformed for me was, living a life that was very specialized and not being able to see anything else because it disturbed that specialization in a way, or I thought it did. But in realizing it actually gave some richness to it, I'm curious to know what may be rooting you now, and then where's like the rootless part of that currently.
Wow, these are complicated like a life. I wish I could say something smart, but it's just very simple, like I'm rooted in my family. I have a great family. I have a great partner. I have amazing kids. I am surrounded by incredible people. They have amazing brain and lifestyle, and my brain is leaking into them. And so I feel like I'm being a part of a great human network that is allowing me not to be mechanical but be creative. People around me, they create a great stimulation to create the neuroplasticity in me, this neurogenesis, this epigenetics that, I awaken things that otherwise would not be awakened. So that's what roots me, like these are the people around. As I said in the beginning, who I am is because of the other people. So there is the root of everything. And I almost believe that people around me are co-creating the direction of the development of the research. They're asking right questions, and so I can respond properly. And these people are provokers. These people are challenging. These people are throwing me out of balance. And I appreciate it very much. I like to be questioned. I like to be checked. I like to be muscled around. I feel very comfortable in that. I like to lose, because I understand I can work on something. If I feel too comfortable, I understand something goes wrong. I don't necessarily look for this flow state. I even don't know what it means really. Most of the time I'm struggling, right? Yeah.
So, do you have another question follow up with that? Yeah. One of the things that I love about some of the things you say is like, how you make fun of this flow state, or another thing is like you make fun of, maybe not make fun of, but you're like, you kind of balk at meditation. So like what?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So why do you hate meditation?
Oh,
so
I don't hate. Like
Yeah.
I explained. Said this story like million times, but I believe like what I said that I'm doing with these teachers that I'm visiting, and I'm asking them what's before the name and the form. I said, don't teach me the judo throw, or don't teach me boxing. Explain me the biomechanics. Explain me the spirit of that game, right? So I'm coming from hunter family, and what I understood, what my kind of family anthropological research is that I realized these very simple people that I met in my life are great observers and are great meditators, but they do it as a necessity. So I believe meditation was first an hunting movement. Hunting movement means that we could hunt, but we could be also hunted. And that means I'm in nature and I become still in order to be able to observe the nature, the clouds, the trees, the animals, to understand where the animals are passing, so I could hunt them maybe, or I could learn from them, or I could observe the quality of the leaves so I know which plants to collect and which not. And I think that later on led into that kind of more introspective kind of search of who we are, right? So you have this very rich experience from life, then you return home to your cave and you try to figure it out, what's going on, what is that chaos, and you use art forms to do so. So you're painting on the stone, or you're dancing about it, or you're singing about it. There's this very artistic expression around it. So I believe that's the most important thing, and that makes people more quiet, that makes people more empty. But I think like people are totally lost. They don't live, and they try to meditate, and they try to find something there. And I overgeneralize, but I rather say live, please, and be useful to someone else. Like the Zen master is beating his students with the sandal and says, return to your families, you lazy bastards. And I just like to find that normality, that you can act well in the city and not only in the retreat when everything is in a perfect condition. I want that you see how your child is asking you to play, and that you can create that time to play with your child. Or when there is a trouble, when you can hear that your friend has a trouble and you can be available to be around, not solve it for them necessarily, but being around, being that someone who is available to what is. So that I value a lot. So I value hunting movements. I don't value that much of meditation. You saw me. You know that I can stand for 1.5 or 2 hours still on my feet, no problem. Or I can sit on my heels and not move, even if 15 mosquitoes will be eating up my forehead. But this is not necessarily what I would promote to the others, because I don't know what's going on in your head when you're sitting. I like to play with you, and so I can see the representation of your mind. We were playing these memory games, and I immediately know who you are. So, but there where you're sitting, I'm not really sure what's going on. Maybe, your monkey mind is already leading you to some death trap and you don't know about it. But when we are playing together, when we are creating together, when we are collaborating in that creative act, we can much more see what's going on, who you are in your totality. And that interests me the most, and that would be leading maybe to what we were saying before about that communication. I'm so interested. Can we take a stone and make a sculpture together? This is our act of meditation. Or can we dance together? Can we sing together? Can we go and help someone else make their life a little bit lighter? Or these are the values that are much more important to me. And I think we are in a world in a great energetical crisis. The good example would be, I'm sitting with my father in a living room, and he already kind of overcome the cancer, but he was still after his radiotherapy, so a little bit tired, and he's watching. He's a simple man. I said he's a hunter, and he's sitting at home. He's watching a TV, and there's this National Geographic channel, and they say like bees are dying, and he's listening. He's doing like this with his head. The program finishes, he stands up, and he leaves the house. I look where he goes. He doesn't say anything. He sits in the car. He disappears for 2 hours. He comes back. He steps out of the car. He has 3 books. He comes back to the living room. He opens the books. He studies for 3 days. He doesn't talk much to anyone. And then on a 4th day, he goes and builds up the beehives in the forest. And so he sees there is a trouble, so he puts his ass up because he's sickly, but he still feels for the other. So he goes out and he does a real action. He does something, and so now we have our own honey. He says, if bees are dying, we need to help them. That was the simple answer, and that's what I appreciate. This is for me a model. This is for me a model of enlightenment. Because we say, there is a trouble. We do not do anything. And I like people of action. That inspires me really a lot.
Go for it.
That was a very inspiring story. I wanted just to sit and think about it and then go do something. But I'm curious. You kind of answered the question I was thinking about, which is like
Just
little headbutt. Just headbutt. We need to keep some lightness.
Very hard.
Second time I did that.
If you're only listening to the audio, Tim got up to grab something, came back and whacked his head on this giant lamp.
On a beautiful stained glass.
Yeah, on a beautiful stained glass that did not break. No, the question I had was, what are you noticing in... You said we have an energetical crisis, but I'm curious if you can go a little bit deeper in that and what you're noticing with, you see hundreds of different people, thousands coming from very, very different social economical backgrounds, all kinds, right? Athletes, everything. And I'm curious what you notice people tend to lack or where they're holding back. Like in my world, I keep seeing people who are living in a protective bubble, right? My job in speaking is finding ways to get people to expand their bubble, to confront more of the ruggedness outside of the boundaries. And that's where there's so much more freedom happens, because when you're stuck in your bubble, you're always slipping, moving to side, trying to evade anything that could trigger or ignite. And I'm curious what you see on your end.
Well, I see I would say it like this. Those who rush are sick or will die very soon. And I think we are just rushing. Everyone wants to read many books. Everyone wants to know. Everyone wants to learn that very fast. Where are you rushing? I mean, if you imagine that you're gonna live 120 years, what's the deal about rushing? I was explaining to my students. I took one book. I took one single paragraph, and we were analyzing that one paragraph in a book of 400 pages for about a week. And there were so many great things that we learned from that paragraph. So I would like to read 4 books a day. They say successful people read 4 books a day. Successful people do this and that. That's a dream of other people. That's a great marketing speech. But you really do not have to rush anywhere. You know what I see when it comes to, we were saying like how people have a problem to invest in a proper practice. Everyone, we hate uncertainty. So what do we want? We want 6-week program. If not 6 weeks, then 12 weeks. And if we don't see results after 12, well, we swap into something else. Bravo. But I'm not really sure if the hips that you will graining so much are going to change in 12 weeks. I think it's going to take 12 years. But unfortunately, you're not going to take that road because you want to see the results now. It comes also when it comes to like when I see athletes, everyone wants to be stronger. I say, forget about stronger. Can you be more musical? Can your joints collaborate better? You move like shit and you're becoming stronger. So your joints, they suffer more. Let the strength aside and dance better, move better. Means that you orchestrate your body better. You understand better the environment. You better understand the communication that you're creating with that environment. Hips, they're not going to change in 12 weeks. We were doing these practices here. Your hips are not moving. And imagine you are reasonably good movers. And you already lost like 40 or 50% of your hip mobility. And now, please, I'm not talking about range of motion. Forget about any range of motion. That does not tell anything about the health of your joints. It is how the joints collaborate together. That's the quality of the joints, not the range. Yes, you can make a split. You can make a nice isolated articulation in certain joints, but that does not make you move better. This does not mean that you move biomechanically more sound, that you are using less energy while you are moving. It rather creates more trouble. But we like it, like, because there are visible results. We like to have these hacks. Everyone is talking about the hacks. You in the West, you are just so smart. Everyone wants to make a shortcut. Well, I like to take my time because I will live forever. I feel like immortal. So I feel very compassionate for mortals, because they soon die, so they have to make really quickly a good business plan to earn money. Well, I don't have to because all my students have enough, I have enough, and we're going to share, and we're going to exchange many different things, not only the money together, but also knowledge and comfort and exchange of different ideas that revitalize my life. So there is no need to rush. And it does not really mean I truly gonna live 120 years. I'm not stupid. I might die on cancer. Maybe I have one already. And that's not really a big deal. But I truly enjoy being with other people, communicating and developing something that has a little bit, I don't want to say more depth, but I just do understand that healing your organs, your heart, it doesn't come so quickly. You need to take a little bit time. And it doesn't mean that you have to prolongate the process of development. I mean, some things could be done in 1 week or 2 weeks. That's fine, but not everything as we believe. And that does not mean when I was working with some professional athletes, it does not mean that if they need to attend the World Championship in following year, that you do not help them to get there and you tell them, well, you can get it in 2 years. No, that's not an objection. Their objection. You need to help them to get there on that particular deadline, but still through creative process. And I care about those people, so I want that in a long run they have benefits. They don't, because no one cares about if you've been a world champion or not. They will forget you. There will be another one later on.
I have a question related to what you said earlier, that the reason you were immersing yourself in your practices was not because you wanted to become healthier. That wasn't the leading thing. The leading thing was love for the practice.
Yeah.
And I have people who come to me all the time and who hate speaking or who feel terrible when they speak, and they say, make me look like a better speaker. Mm-hmm. And I say, no, I don't care that you look like a better speaker. I don't want to make someone who hates speaking look like a better speaker. Then you're just going to look like a better speaker and hate it even more. So my only job is how can I create a path and create games so that you start enjoying it. And then once you start enjoying it, if you can prove to me that you're really enjoying it, then we can start working on the mechanics and we can work on everything else.
Correct.
But I do notice that in your approach, there is that, but you're also holding back on that. It clearly isn't the guiding factor. When we come to a fighting monkey and you're going to do 2 or 3 days of zero practice coordinations and everything, and the goal for you is clearly not, I want everybody to start loving this, right? Even though you understand that if people fell in love with the practice, they'd be more likely to continue. So I'm curious, what are you wrestling with in your mind when it comes to that?
About people achieving or liking what I do. Well, I can do only what I do. I cannot influence if you like it or not. This is your problem. I can only do what I love to do at that particular moment. And it's also like I do not necessarily... People think, the great people think that people are stupid, that you need to make it more simple for them. I don't think so. I mean, that's a very arrogant assumption. I really think that people are intelligent. I never met anyone stupid. I really met only intelligent people in my life. they could move not so great, or they could think maybe like being in a bubble or having the same habits. But it's just a question of, can we play new games together that will awaken a little bit of smile and a little bit of interest in life again? Can we open up a little bit that range within which we usually articulate ourselves? When we do coordinations, you see, I propose in coordination. I know that you might not get it, but nevertheless, I mean, children also, they are born in a very complex environment, and they have to deal with that greatly complex environment. I always give that same example. So you have your child in the bed, and it's 10-month old child, and you read it a poem, or you read it a story, right? You're not gonna choose the words that your child knows how to speak. You just tell the whole story, and the child will know some parts of it and some not, and the child will bridge it in some way through their imagination, through their dreaming, etc. So it's an incomplete image. And it seems to me like when we are adults, like we says, oh, if you can do only that, let's do only that, and then we add a little bit more into it, and it's so linear, it's so controlled, and so we become so flat in our learning. And I would like to challenge that. And of course, I don't want to now go into science of learning. I study what science is offering, and it's all truth there. I'm only saying I can propose something that it's complex, and you will be surprised how incredibly capable is you in your totality to deal with the complexity. How many different learning strategies you can come up with, rather than with one amazingly effective learning strategy that me, Jozef Frucek, the founder of FM, the best practice in the world, came up with, right? So if I create a complex problem and I say, guys, solve it, you will see like 30 people in a class, and everyone will have a slightly different shade within which they will solve the trouble. And they will be also more forced to communicate with each other, rather than me telling them and explaining them everything. So it's like very decentralized knowledge. It's decentralized learning. And I, again, enjoyed it because I'm learning from the students a great lesson. It's incredibly variable. It's incredibly creative. It's inspiring. It's surprising.
Cool. Yeah. You want to wrap up soon, or we got some time? What do you think?
Is there any sort of burning? One thing I want to talk about is the thing that also interests me is what already exists within us. And when we talk about learning or education or knowledge, oftentimes we're seeking outside of ourselves. And one thing that I really resonate with your practice and your practice and your practice, and it's like, and even for free diving today, there are these things that we have inherited over millions of years that we don't have the exposure to. And I see your practice just exposing those things. And so you might say, hey, we can't learn anything in 3 days. These things are actually within you. But just cracking open our idea of what is true, and realizing, we have it within. I'm curious to know what have been maybe the pillars. I know the coordinations are a pillar. I know that the dance is a pillar. I know these other games are pillars. I'm wondering if you have an experience where there was you recognize that there was something within you and it wasn't actually outside.
I realize I am an empty shell. There is nothing within me that I could learn. I don't know. I think you answered it already. I think you said it.
Okay. One more question then, because you talked about being empty this week, and I really resonate with that. Can you just elaborate on that?
On being empty?
Yeah, on being empty, and how we spend a lot of energy trying to actually fill up, and what that means for you practically.
Oh, we always try to fulfill the dreams of other people for some reason. In some occasion, it is great. If I get a performer or an athlete that fulfill the dream of someone else, in some occasion it is really great. But now I talk about our attitude to life. We always hear someone does something, and so we've this big mind that always wants what the others they have, etc. And we've been doing these beautiful classes together with Tristan, where we speak before we think, and Tristan asks me something, and he requires something from me, and if I feel that this is the right thing to answer, I do. But if I feel that this is not the right answer, I just oppose it with all my might, and it gives me a great creative wave on which I can ride and explore new things and make people laugh, maybe, and make it more funny or make it very serious. When someone was working on me as a director, I like to fulfill their dream, but I need a certain amount of independency as well in order to express myself and contribute creatively to that process to come up with something collaboratively. So we need that kind of capacity.
Nice. I do want to ask one more thing of just another thing, just about your character and just how you're so many. You show up in these different ways. You're funny as hell. You're kind of crazy. You're super serious and agile and intense. And this is like, to me, it's like your expression of who you are is like, it's what I believe we all have within us is this ability to really like maybe, empty this shell and just be who we are as a being, but you seem to tap into that pretty incredibly, and so I don't even know if you know what you're I'm sure you have an awareness of this, but it's it's like, what do you see, like, what is this within yourself, like, what are some of the things that have unlocked this for you? Has it been something that's been within you since you've been a child and it's just been welcomed and never really pushed away, or like, what is that?
I was always floating between two worlds. One world was the world of Spartan education in my family. Like the hunting education means that things that have to be done and things that are measurable, right? That's just like a sport. It has a goal. And then all my escapes in life towards art, where everything that cannot be measurable is valuable. And I was floating between these two worlds, and I'm still floating between them. So once it is for something that is measurable, but in the same day, I might be also working on an artistic project within which that quality that cannot be almost perceived creates a great results that create humor or the great creativity in that particular performance or show that you would be making. So I think that alternation was very, very important. And also I got acting education in my life, and that really helped me to be on the stage. We in our life, we create scenarios, like we make a hypothesis about our future. We always do that, like what will happen, etc. We try to know, even if we do not know. So we create kind of scripts. So you write a theater play, and you go on the stage and you try to perform it as best as you can. But it didn't really work, and people really shout on you how horrible you were. So we go home and you rewrite it a little bit, and you think you're well prepared for the play with 5 players, but you come there and it's actually a solo performance, and you ruin it again, and then you go home again and you rewrite something for solo, and then you come back on the stage and it is not solo. There are other 10 performers. So it's very difficult to be a black belt in life. We can be black belt in some particular domains. You can be black belt in judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You can be black belt in I don't know what, but in life it's very difficult to be a black belt. But I'm very interested how to become a black belt in something that is impossible to become a black belt. So what we like the most? We like that there is some great writer, great teacher, great master, great guide that tell us this is the script through which you will be successful on the stage. So let's make an example that everyone will understand. So this is a play of a Shakespeare, and it is a Hamlet, and you will be playing a Hamlet. And so you get that script and you become amazing in it. And you come on the stage, you know exactly when is the premiere, and the premiere is on the 15th of March, and you do the premiere and everyone loves you, and you're getting every time applause every time you play the theater play. The problem is that you're only circulating one role all the time. I know there are many variabilities, but over the time, this becomes a very monotonic environment. This is what we are all seeking for, then the constant success. What it is more like in our life, it is like someone kicks you on the stage when you're a kid, And he said, play. You know, play is a symbol of the universe, right? And you're always encountering something that you didn't think will happen. And you're always rewriting those scripts. So I find myself like I'm enjoying rewriting the scripts. And I'm making a lot of hypotheses. I say, what people say about me above my grave. They say, oh my God, you know, what I would like that these people say above my grave, you know. So, or I say to myself, how I would like to move when if I'm going to make it till there, how I would move when I'm 80. Or what kind of relationship do I create in order to live nice when I'm 80 or 90? What do I want to do? Where I want to spend my energy? And so I'm writing these scripts, I'm making these hypotheses. They create a very rich environment within which I can play and be funny and not take myself too serious. But I also have to say that I have people around me that allow me and help me to be this way and accept me being crazy. Yes, I'm out of my mind. Imagine my partner, my wife. Imagine my children that are looking at me, they are laughing with me, crying with me, that they see like their father is a mess, you know, like a little scientist. You know, like when the kids, they, you know, like when we go somewhere, the kids, they give me the key, or the kids pick up from the floor the mobile that I forgot in a park, you know. So this is my extension of my brain. So these people around me allow me that playfulness, that childishness. And the childishness is also very scientific. Don't think like playing doesn't teach you anything. When you see children, you know, like you see a little baby, and that little baby sees a cup on the table, and he takes that cup and throws this cup on the floor and makes a big noise. Big noise. And he looks at the mom. Mom says, oh, don't throw the cup on the floor. Mom takes the cup, puts it back on the table. And the kid goes like, wait a minute. If I catch this cup again and I throw it on the table, will it make the same noise? Let's try it again. And the child looks at this, looks at the mom. Mom has a similar reaction and says, wow, I'm making a good scientific sample. I did it twice, it works. Let's see if it does third time. So, you know, like children are not mean. Children are scientists. They are interested in life. They try to take responsibility. They search for understanding of what life is. But it seems like later on when we get in our life, we just lose that momentum, this beautiful need to, you know, like to, you could be almost anything. You know what I have in my laptop? I open my laptop and there is my face when I was maybe like 9 months old. And I look at that face and I always says, at that time, everything was possible. Now, not that much. And so I try to not define myself too well now. So I still try to have that morphosis, you know, like have that window of neuroplasticity still open, that I could still become maybe something else in my life.
Nice. Yeah.
That's a good place to end.
Yeah, it's a great place.
That's
to
perfect.
End. Yeah. Nice.
Okay, we didn't have a flow at the beginning, but we got it towards the end.
We did. Yeah, we did. All right, cool. Thanks, Jozef. Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.